didn't play Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. Because I don't play games. This is why. However, I love watching other people play things like the newest Zelda game. I don't play games. Reasons. However, watching other people do that, you get to experience the story. There's a surprisingly large amount of story in the Zelda games. The Zelda franchise is like 40 years old now. They're nearly at the 40-year mark. And the newest game, which dropped like a couple of months ago and everybody's going bananas about, is kind of the Lord of the Rings of the game world. And in more ways than one, because it has a lot of lore. And it has some things that are completely unique to games and unique to Zelda, which may or may not be actually unique, but you know. Nintendo, who makes the Zelda games, has, I think this is like the 25th game or something like that in the Zelda range, and this is the second one that is similar looking. It's actually on the same game map. The land is the same. There are differences. But this is a game that if you play it, it's about 50 hours of gameplay on average.
Yeah, 50 hours is pretty normal.
It's pretty normal, but there's a lot to see. And when I watch other people play, because I don't play them themselves, I've noticed a bunch of different things that on how one partakes of gameplay when you don't play. And because Zelda is such a big game, there are people who just go play the game and you follow them, or somebody makes a compilation of all the key features, because who wants to do 50 hours of gameplay? And not all of the gameplay is riveting. I mean, there's moments where Link, the hero, is just running through a field carrying a Korok on his back to another Korok. It's not that riveting most of the time, all of the time. Some of the time it's absolutely riveting. So there's people who make compilations. Because the Zelda game is pretty new, the compilations are not there yet, and that's maybe what I want to talk about in this movie. Like I said, I don't play the game. I am watching other people play the game. That is how I enjoy this. So if somebody decides to have a playthrough of just Link running around doing whatever and not doing the main story, that's up to that person, and I'm sort of stuck with that. I have my favorite people who I go to for this kind of games. And for the Zelda game, I go to a Dutch lady who does that, and I like it because she also puts on the original Japanese soundtrack with the English subtitles, so you get the Japanese, because most people put it in the English, which is very interesting and very utilitarianly useful. But no disrespect to the girl the actress who does Zelda, but does she have to be that whiny in English? Really? She's fine in Japanese, so I prefer the Japanese version, but it's neither here nor there. I'm stuck with whatever the person chooses. And one of the other things that a player who makes videos will choose is how much are they going to talk. It's very important. When are you going to talk? How much you're going to talk? And even lastly, what you're going to talk about. But it's lastly, you know. One thing is important: they should not talk while the game talks, actually makes talky noises, because that's annoying. I found that very quickly. A YouTuber who talks over the actual game speech, done. Because as a viewer, that's no. Another thing that Gab does, Gab Smolders, I'll put the link somewhere there. She's very good. Does, and a lot of the YouTubers do, is when there's written text, they say it out loud, because a lot of people who watch these videos are on the car and they're not actually always looking. they're driving or they're knitting or just doing something other. So when their written text come on, they've learned we say it out loud, which is very nice. And if you have a YouTuber that has a nice voice for that, so much the better. Another thing that's important is the temperament of the player. Because Gab Smolders, who I had for the Zelda, she's very sedate. She's a very calm person. And this game is sometimes very sedate and sometimes very, very fighty. And but fighty can, if the YouTuber, if the player is too skilled, the fighty can go so fast that I, as the viewer, cannot see it. Gab's level is such that she takes enough time that I can actually see what she's doing. And that's nice. And she's very sedate. So in a game that is a little bit more difficult and a little bit more upbeat, she's actually perfect. There are other games that I watch with jacksepticeye, who is manic energy. He's nuts, and you want something that is either distracts him from his manicness or is sedate in itself because it calms him down, and it's sort of a great combination. I wouldn't want to watch him play a Zelda game because it would be bananas in the wrong way. Oddly enough, Gab Smolders complains that her run of Zelda games is doing worse on her channel than anything else. And she usually does like games of sorting stuff and puzzle games. She's really good at puzzle games. I've watched those. Those are even more sedate than the Zelda games. Maybe the Zelda games is too upbeat for her channel. That's it. But so you can watch these games the full 50 hours, somebody do a run. Problem with that is that you have to find somebody who actually is willing to go all the way to the end. And if this game just came out, you don't know if they're going to finish all the way. Because if the viewership on YouTube is not high enough, people will say, I can make these videos, but they're a lot of effort and nobody's looking. So... And by nobody, they mean only a couple of thousand people.
Only thousands, yes.
So then it stops, and that's upsetting. So if you've started a game with somebody and then they stop, but YouTube stuff stays on YouTube. So if you now want to watch Breath of the Wild, which is the previous Zelda game, it's from 2017, watch somebody do a playthrough of that, you should be able to find one that comes all the way to the end, and just check that they have all of them, and then you can watch that. But it's 50 hours at least for a Zelda game, and it's maybe a rewarding 50 hours, but not all of it. So what people do is make compilations and what they call a cutscene movie. There's a cutscene. A cutscene is something that is unique to games. It's really from a time when you'd have a simple computer that did like simple gameplay, but you want to do something more complicated, so they pre-record a set piece, animate it, and slot that in. So you have your gameplay, then you stop, you do your little animation with some actual story in it. Usually the cutscenes had the actual story in it, and then you go back to fighty with a figure that's like this big, and all the 5 pixels tall with a little swordie going peep peep peep, and now you know. The cutscene shows you why. So putting in these cutscenes has been 40 years they've been doing that.
Oh,
yeah. And people on YouTube, because if you have like a 50-hour game, but the cutscenes are the nicest thing to look at, yes. And there may be
2 hours,
not even an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah, I've seen a few that are 2 hours.
Yeah,
about that. Yeah.
And then people just put them together and then call them a cutscene movie. Yeah. There's a but with that. You see, if you get the cutscenes, if you get somebody who just takes the cutscenes, plonks them into a movie, that's an hour and 5 minutes of actual cutscenes from that game, and that is factually correct. But it's not something you can actually watch because you literally will get snippets of stuff of which you're missing all the other stuff, because you don't know how they got from point A to point B, because he did it by fighty with little thingy all the way, and stuff happens in the gameplay itself. So that makes cutscene movie, even though that's a wonderful term you can look for, not the best term ever. It's difficult finding the right cutscene movie for the right franchise. It is.
Yeah, I've done it though when I'm because they use voice actors, and some of them are famous for the actual franchise, or sometimes they're famous for other things, and I've watched, and that's why I know they go up to about 2 hours, but 1.5 hours. I've seen several of those, and it's still fun because it's interesting animation. It's different animation than you would see in an animated movie, and yes, it is very strange, snippy storytelling. But you still get your sense of the character and the voice that goes with the character. So, is it actually that the voice is also important to the gameplay? So the voice goes through in the game, if that character goes on in the game. Because I had actually one where the character that I was interested in was a Jensen Ackles one. He wasn't actually in the gameplay. He was only in the snippet movies.
The cutscenes, yeah. And it depends. It entirely depends. This is going to be from here on, whatever I say, it's going to be, it depends. Because there are things that limit how games are made. Money, but money comes in the form of how big can the game be on the cartridge that it's for whatever console it is. There's a limit to that. And with these much older games, and this is not the Eccleston one, because I think that's probably 2008 or something like that. Yeah, something like would be. Yeah. That would be on a CD-ROM, so you have like 650 megabytes to work with. But if you have like really small games, like the very first Zelda game would have fitted on a little cartridge. No, not quite the Donkey Kong game that yet.
I have it. I still have mine.
Yes, and it would have fitted on a little cartridge, maybe 512, half a megabyte or something like that. And it's some of the lore that is in Zelda, and Zelda has a lot of lore, of those very old games are actually in the manual, the little booklet that came with the cartridge, because it simply could not fit in the game. Once they started doing like cutscene type things, you could put the lore in the game. And what they also would do just for bundling's sake is put the sound with the cutscene. So when there was a cutscene, there would be sound. And what they would do for the characters long term, so you have the cutscene of Link talking to the owl, and it would go ooh in the cutscene, and then they would take that little ooh, make it a little bunch of numbers on a list that over here there's an ooh, and every time you see the owl in the gameplay, it goes ooh in the same way. This, as you can see, for a 50-hour game, this can get really annoying.
It gets old very fast.
Even in the newest Zelda game, there is a fairy, and she's very voluptuous, very busty, and she goes every time Link comes to upgrade his armor, she goes in exact the same way.
Horrible.
It's a thing. You get. I think it's a case of when you actually play the game, you probably notice it less.
Yeah. No, that's just.
It is. I'm gonna come back to Zelda again because it's the Koroks. The Koroks. Everybody hates the Koroks. The Koroks are in Breath of the Wild, and Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is they follow from each other, and they're in the same world. So Koroks, if they're in Breath of the Wild, they're gonna be in the Tears of the Kingdom. Korok, there are 800 Koroks you can find. When you find them, they go, "Oh, you found me!" And they give you a seed. You take the seed, you bundle a bunch of them, and you trade them for something nice. 800 you can find. You don't have to actually, to beat the game, you don't have to find all 800. However, if you do, you get a little tick that says you finished the game properly. If you've also done the big boss and the storyline and the big boss and all the other things, to actually finish the game altogether officially, you need to find all 800 Koroks. Once you've found the very last Korok Seed and you take it to get it exchanged, usually when you finish a task or a quest, you get a sword of spiffiness or an armor of awesomeness or something. Here you get a magnificent golden poo. So there was a lot of complaints about this. And actually, there is a lot of complaints about Breath of the Wild. I mean, everybody loved Breath of the Wild. Let's make it very clear. It is piff. However, there were a lot of complaints. There's no game that is perfect. So there are a lot of complaints. And Nintendo took them on and rectified pretty much everything. As far as I can tell from people, I've watched people complain in videos before Tears of the Kingdom came out about Breath of the Wild. This is wrong, and this, if they changed this around a little bit like that, it would be so much better. And if you got a reward in this spot and not in that spot, it would be even better. And basically, Nintendo did all of that. And then you come to the Koroks. They are in the Tears of the Kingdom because yes, it's a tradition. It is a Nintendo tradition to have Koroks. And now there are, I believe there are now 900 of them to get. And on top of that, there's 900 single ones. And then there's a set of 100 where you have to carry the Korok to a Korok friend. And then you get 2 seeds because you have helped 2 Koroks. So altogether it's like 1100 Korok seeds you can get. And once you get to the end of... You've beaten you've done the whole game. You've beaten the big boss. You've done all the main quests. You get all the Korok Seeds and the second set of Korok Seeds. You take the very last Korok Seeds to get it exchanged. You get a bigger golden poo. And the reason for it, there is a reason for it, becomes clear in the moment I say that, of course, Nintendo, the chap who makes Zelda games, especially the last 2, lives next to a Shinto temple. He is a Shintoist, and Koroks are nature creatures, and it is the journey, not the results. And that is why you get a golden poo at the end of your journey.
All right. Oh my goodness. Are the fans happy? Are the players happy? No.
The interesting thing, and this is why I find it interesting to watch players play games like Zelda, because I do understand a little bit about Zen Buddhism and Shintoism, and I see some of these elements, and I watch people who are absolutely unfamiliar with these elements react to, because of course the Koroks are going to come back, and of course they're going to be like that, and of course you get a golden poo at the end. And they go, and the look on their faces. So if you want to go watch people go nuts on games, I mean, I enjoy this very much. But I have to say, you have to get the right game with the right player. And there's...
For you.
No, altogether.
Okay, so
there's some base here, yeah. And if it's like, especially a fighty game, because it's like sitting next to a person who's driving a car. It's a different experience, and if the experience is too different, it doesn't work anymore. So, like watching people play Mario Kart, which is drivey, is depends on if there was. one where there were 4 people, because you can go up with 4 people and play at the same time, and they had like a bunch of actors, famous actors, and that's interesting again. But that's exceptional, because Mario Kart, on the whole, no. But there's, I think, games where the person is reacting, where the player reacts to the environment. I really enjoyed Jacksepticeye, who was like Manic Energy, plays a game called Subnautica. In Subnautica, you are dropped in a world underwater, and basically you just explore. It's what they call an open world. Zelda is also open world. I think I probably have to explain that. An open world versus a closed world is that in games earlier it was easier to just let your character come to a space, do whatever in the space, and then move on to the next space. And then once you're in the next space, you can't move back. That's closed. It means you can progress. That you can you can progress, and you can make like your enemies harder every time. So that's interesting in its way. But an open world means that you're dropped and you go any which way you like. And if you go that way, you will find something, and if you go that way, you find something, if they programmed it in. But it means that that whatever person you meet next, or the first person you meet, could be that one, or it could be that one. So they have to, when they program it, and the Zelda games has the problem, is that they have to program that one to be a certain level of dangerous, but that one also have a certain level of dangerous, and you sort of have to either compensate or do something else to give Link, your main character, the chance to level up. With a scened one where you just progress through more difficult scenes, you level up in that way. With open world, it's different. And Subnautica is one of the better ways to do open world. Is just you are in a modern setting. It's sci-fi. Games do sci-fi so wonderfully well, so easy, in a way that movies can't do it. Because all you need to do is program the world and let the person, the player, interact with it. And in Subnautica, you are dropped in a water world, and you have to set up a base and find out what happened to the previous expedition. Which is another thing that games really do well, is non-linear storytelling. Because you are in your open world and you can go that way. And if you go that way, you find out a diary of one of the previous inhabitants that left the base and set up themselves. Or you can go that way and you find a chunk of the old base.
So that one is actually a mystery.
Yes. Very often the things are a mystery. Zelda is also a mystery, because same reason, you get the story in chunks, which comes you back to storytelling. How the cutscene movie that you got earlier is a collection of these scenes, but if it was like the progression one, the scened one, yeah, you get them in the right order. But the open world one, what order do you pick? And they have to be written that way. They have to be written that you can either pick up that one first, or that one first, or that one first, or that one first, or that one first. You know? And they still have to make sense. So the writing on this is very interesting. Zelda writing, and they're smart. They keep it simple. Because complicated enough. Because over the 50 hours of both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, they have 2 different storylines, but the setup is the same, and Subnautica's setup is the same, and a whole bunch of other games, is you get it in pieces, and you have to piece it together, so you're always a detective in these kind of games, if you have any story. If you have a non-linear story like this, open world, you're a detective, absolutely. So this mystery, following a mystery around, is what games do excellently well. In a sci-fi setting or a fantasy setting. Actually, I think the sci-fi, Zelda notwithstanding, I think the sci-fi is actually what games do absolutely phenomenally good. The fantasy can sometimes bog themselves down in stupid, ludicrous things. And Zelda gets out of that because it keeps harking back to Shintoism and Zen Buddhism to ground them into not our sense of smarts, but their sense of smarts. It makes it cohesive. There are a bunch of things that are unique to game and storytelling that I've not seen anywhere else. The open world versus not open world. They have strongly things like maps and menus and inventories, which is, you don't see that's not anywhere else. A skill tree, which is a pretty new term, and that is in the same vein as maps and menus and inventory. Map, of course, locations. Menus is options of what you can do. Inventory is what can you carry with you. And a skill tree is how do I develop my character to be... I don't know if sometimes you can actually set up your character, so you can completely customize your character. Not in all games, but some games let you do that. But even if you don't have a customized character, you can still customize. Is this version of the character going to be geared towards working with electricity magic, or is it going to be somebody who makes potions? And then as you get points from doing things, you can trade them for skills, and you can put those skills in either blacksmithing or potion making or or welding. I don't know. Depending on and that customizes your game and your character, even though you are a character in a video game.
Yeah, so that's closer to roleplay games where you can customize your character within the limits of the game parameters.
Yep.
You can pick and choose. At that level, I develop my character for these skills, and then the next level I get so many experience points, or I level up, I get to choose some more skills.
Yes, and but there's a limit to what your character can do in games versus any other medium. One of the things that the games do absolutely poorly is romance. Because romance is personal, and what they do, and there are a couple of games that are really romantically wonderful, but what they do is put the romance outside of you, and you find out in your detective way about the romance. One of the games that I want to highlight is called Unpacking. It is a very sedate, wonderful game, and all you do, it's not very long. I think it's maybe an hour. If you full gameplay is like maybe an hour, so it's not very long at all. You come into a space as you, and there's just some moving boxes, and what you do is open up the boxes and put away the things. And as you first have a room of a teenager, and you put on like math books and globes and stuff like that, and as when you finish, and you put it wherever you want because you're the player, and then you move to another house and you find that we found like stuff for midterms for college, and as you progress for a bunch of different house movings, you're always setting up for a new house. You experience the story. You as the person who's playing find suddenly there's somebody's PlayStation is there, and there's like a tennis racket, and your stuff, you have in your stuff there's a bra and a teddy bear. Are you moving in with somebody? That's your question, and that's what the game does. It just lets you experience the story in that way, and that's lovely, very romantic, and it is about you, but you're not doing it yourself, you're just experiencing it. So yeah, I love it. So there is scope for stuff.
I could see then they move again, and then there's a box they open up and there's a baby blanket.
Or there is a box and it turns out there is no more other person. But then there's some more people. So it's a really good game. It's on Steam for people who are interested in that sort of thing. So Steam means, if something is on Steam, means is that generally anybody can play it, because you can play it on PC as well. The Zelda games are on Switch only, so you actually have need the machine to play the game, which is going back to Zelda, because we always get back to Zelda. Okay, this is for a game that I have not watched people play, because it's I don't like the look, but if I'm gonna watch people play a game for many, many hours, I need to like the look, and I don't like the look. But I heard of this happening for storytelling reasons. I heard of this happening because of something Zelda, because you always end up with something Zelda. Elder Scrolls, a game franchise that's been running for a long, long time, had an interesting game in which you could, as you progress through the game, the choices that you made influenced the ending you would be getting. And there was six different, significantly different endings to the game altogether, including one where they actually ended the entire world. So these are game endings that are not compatible with each other. It's just very interesting. And when the company wanted to do the next game after that, people said, well, which ending is the right ending? Because I played all of them and they're all interesting, but they're not compatible. And sort of Elden Ring says they all are. And this is called the Dragon Break. This idea of just all of them is a new idea, and because Zelda, coming back to Zelda, is now nearly 40 years old, and they have over 20 games. If you want to fit it all in one world, which is the question is, do you want to fit? Let me put it this way: the fans want to fit it all in one world. You get a point because they have the Ocarina of Time storyline, which already in itself breaks reality into at least two pieces, and probably three. So you have three pieces that later have to either be retconned or combined in a Dragon Break before you get to Breath of the Wild, which is the new Zelda. I've been listening to a lot of people talk about the Zelda lore and how it fits together, and what, if anything, Nintendo says about it, because they try to say as little as possible. And from every time I hear anybody from Nintendo talk, I seem to see they're saying, it's nice that you think it ought to fit together, but we don't care that much. No. It's not that they don't care in the way that Western people care. It's just not important. It doesn't matter. It's the big golden poo you get at the end. Yeah. It's
the destination.
Yeah, and I think they are right, because I actually missed Breath of the Wild for gameplay, so I see it in retrospect. And these Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are supposed to be continuations of each other. It's literally, there's 6 years between the one and the other, and it is the same Zelda and it is the same Link, so that is clear. But still our stuff is incompatible in a Dragon Break kind of way. And I think what Nintendo is doing, and what all these games do and should be doing, is make sure that they make a good game first and lore second. Because you need a good game. Because the reason I stopped playing games in 1986, is because I did not have the skill to make the little figure jump from this platform to that platform on level 1. So my frustration was through the roof, and then you stop playing games. And that is what a game needs to do, is not frustrate the people in the gameplay. Even if it doesn't make sense, as long as they keep playing, it's all good. It's a little bit overdone, but it's good. Because if you have like a movie and you bore people to death, they just zone out and didn't partake. The book, people stop reading. With a game, you stop playing and the action stops dead. There's nothing. If the player does not play, the game does not exist. And Nintendo knows that. So great if you make it to the end, but you get a big golden poo. So that's for lore. But there's a lot of lore. If you want to go into just Zelda lore, there's a lot. And there's a lot to think about. Very enjoyable. Very good videos of it about. A game that I have to mention. Not many people are going to mention it because there's a lot of lore in this as well. There's everything that's good about Zelda is in this game. Except that it is a closed world and it's only an hour and a half. But it's got all the... it's got Zelda lore, but more abstract. Zelda lore is... There's names to it, and this doesn't even have names to it. It's all abstract. It is... I think it is the... I'm frustrating the peanut gallery by not saying the name of the game.
No, she's not saying the name of the game.
It's called Journey. It is was made for PS3, had a PS4 port, and is now on Steam, so you can play it. It is multiplayer if you can get a fellow traveler because you're traveling, and it has everything that a game should have. It has gorgeous visuals. I'm told for the people who play it that it has beautiful just movement, gameplay. It has gorgeous music, and it's very simple. It is simple to the point that it becomes completely transcendental. Anybody can understand this game. You don't have to know. You don't have to be because it has very strong. Again, Shinto, but Shinto and Buddhist and everything that makes a religion. They whittled it down to the absolute basics of that, and then made a game about it. It's about a traveler. That's you. You get no information, so you just rise up and you stand on the sand. And where do I go now? And it's pretty clear where you go, and then you get a vista, and then it's pretty clear where you go. It is beautifully in its simplicity. And for gameplay, if you want to watch it, it's about an hour and a half. Look for any gameplay that says about an hour 20, an hour and a half. If they go any faster than that, they're starting to skip stuff. And if they go longer, it doesn't get any better. So this is about the size of it. Look for one that says no commentary, because you do not want anybody to talk through this at all. It doesn't require it. In fact, it's annoying. Absolutely not. I have to say I got lucky, because the very, very first time I watched it, the person who switched it on for me said, you know what? I usually talk, but I'm not talking today. So, hello, welcome to the stream. I'm going to play the game and shut up. And he did. So, thank you. Because you did me a favor. Because this one requires no explanation. You need to experience it the way it is. And of course it would be better if you experience it as a gameplay. I would this is the only one that I'm tempted to. Maybe I should play this one. Because I'm still too worried about that jumping from one ledge to another. I'm so worried I'm just going to get stuck. And I'll be so disappointed. So. But this one is the one that has me tempted. Zelda does not have me tempted. Zelda is way too complicated for me. But this one. There are other kinds of games to play. There's a game called Superliminal, which is a puzzle game. And it uses the three-dimensionality of the world versus the fact that you're looking at a flat screen. and makes puzzle games that way. It doesn't have that much of a story, but it's a really great game, and I've really enjoyed watching Jacksepticeye and Markiplier play it, because that's fun. So yeah, that sort of game is great. A game I had to give up on was God of War, the new God of War Ragnarok. I was hoping Jacksepticeye would let me watch him play it, but it's the offset of story versus fighty was too much fighty and very, because it's about death and gods, and I had to give up on that one real quick. But that's a personal thing. So if it has to be the right game, it has to be the right player, it has to be everything right. And don't be afraid to say, hey, I want a person who is a little bit more sedate, or I want a person who's a little bit more nuts, or somebody who's better at puzzles, or somebody who's better at fighty. That's okay. Special mention for... I have two special mentions for the Stanley Parable. Stanley Parable is a absolute blast. If you're gonna play anything, play the Stanley Parable. Requires no skill, I'm sure. And you can get any YouTuber who knows to shut up when somebody else is talking. It's fine, because have the conversation with the narrator, because the narrator is gonna push you off royally. I love the Stanley Parable. It's great fun.
This is the story of a man named Stanley.
And commendation for that narrator, because I think he put the thing is basically just a space with the narrator. You walk through the spaces and the narrator talks. Other things also happen, but the hours this guy put in, this is a real guy and a real hour, so oh my god. The other special recommendation I want to make was for the Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider from 1996 was a game, and I would have been like floppies, or maybe probably CD-ROM. And of course I didn't play it, and I never got to play any of that, because at the time they were not recording playthroughs. It was just not a thing. So I never got to take part in that. I did see the movie. It was okay. But the actual Tomb Raider, I never got to play it or watch anybody else play it. And now, because it's so old, there's a chappie who's doing videos where he took the Tomb Raider, stuck it in a virtual box on his machine, had trained AI to play Tomb Raider. So we have I've seen 4 episodes now of the AI interacting as little square Lara Croft with her bullet bra. And the magnificent thing about it is that the original Tomb Raider did have a tutorial, and they had an actress do a couple of lines, I don't know how many, as Lara, very, very British Lara. And this chappie took modern AI, stuck in the sounds from the original game, and whenever in his box Lara, by way of AI, thinks something, he funnels it into the sound AI, renders the speech, sticks it into the gameplay. So now we get a fully narrated Lara.
I was expecting a boom. It's disappointing.
And that is marvelous. He basically says that for every 45 minutes of actual gameplay, he's rendering about 16 hours of additional stuff. So you get about one once a week. So far, one once a week. I hope he keeps going. And that brings me to the fact that you had the narration. Because I also wanted to, for the Zelda lore, because I was interested, I wanted to see some of the older games than Zelda, than before Breath of the Wild. Or even Breath of the Wild, because they all have the same problem. You get to gameplay that is not by somebody who actually makes commentary or is like a compilation. If it's not a compilation, it's 50 hours per game. Even those older games is 50 hours per game. And they don't all look as wonderful as the newer games do. And there is almost no voice acting. Everything is written down, so you have to read everything. So if you don't have a YouTuber that's willing to read it up for you, you're going to be reading a lot on a 50-hour game. And when you're playing it in your corner of your couch and going at that. But as a YouTube video, that was more than I could handle. So some of these Zelda things I had to stick to other people's compilations. But then you get the other problem. One of the games is called Skyward Sword, which is set in the Zelda timeline as at the start, so at the creation of their world. And that means there's a lot of lore there, but when you watch a compilation or somebody talking about it, it's their interpretation of what's in it, not what's in it. If you want to do what's in it, you're going to have to go to the game, and you're going to have to read every single bloody line, including all 800 and Koroks. Hee hee, you found me. Pooh. Because that is in there too. Because it's meant to fill up those 50 hours. So yeah. So that is the frustration of the gameplays. But there's a lot of games I haven't covered because there's a lot of games that have no story, but lots of interesting dynamics. Like Subnautica does have a story, but there's like Subnautica many games of space exploration, and if you want to do sci-fi, oh, so much sci-fi. I love it. They should do that more in films, because I want some sci-fi films. I don't want to. Last thoughts. Games that are after movies. That just is probably this is just so you know. So as you know, games that are after movies are usually, 99.9999% of the time, lousy. These are not the games you want to play. There's an exception. There is a notable exception. The game for Goldeneye in 2008, I believe, is exceptionally good, but it's the only one. So if you think a Harry Potter game is good, no, it ain't. It's garbage. On the other side, of course, movies made after games also have a terrible reputation. I think like the new Mario movie people liked, and I hear people wanting to like the Ninja Turtles is not game anyway. People like the new Mario movie. Yay! But on the whole, that's also bad. But the other way is also bad, so forget it. They don't port very well because you have a disconnect in a game. You are spending a lot of time carrying a Korok to another Korok. And you're enjoying yourself. And you can't do that in a movie. In a movie, you have to completely cut out all the Koroks. They can be as decorations on the wall, but you cannot have them in there because you don't have the time. So, also in a game, you have control. You can decide where to go. Even if you only have like a linear progression, you still... How you progress and how long it takes is up to you. If you decide to go have lunch, you have lunch. Film doesn't stop for you. Film keeps going. Also, your attention span in the film keeps going. So if you look away in a film, you have lost the plot. Whereas in a game, you may have lost your life because you got killed because you looked away. But you haven't lost the plot. So they are very different. Yes. Here I have a special note for Zelda, for new Zelda. One game to entertain them all. Because I think that's what Zelda is trying to do. The Tears of the Kingdom, the Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom stories. And the more I look at them, because the Breath of the Wild came out when the Wii U, the machine it runs on, was at its heyday, and the Switch was nearly not invented yet. And it was then reported to the Switch, which was the new hardware, in 2018. And now Tears of the Kingdom is on the Switch only, And people are saying, oh, but the Switch is coming to its end of life already. And what I'm seeing people talk about is that these games compared, it's Breath of the Wild is basically the beta version for Tears of the Kingdom in all except story, because Breath of the Wild has just simply less functionality than Tears of the Kingdom. Tears of the Kingdom has it all. So the production that Nintendo took to actually get Tears of the Kingdom made was so long, they had to put out a beta version and sell it as a real version. Because it's that vast, and it is vast. I mean, 50 hours, you say that's normal for gameplay. 50 hours is normal for gameplay. For Zelda, you can beat it in less than 50 if you need to. But if you get the most out of the Zelda game, 200 hours, 300 hours easily, you can just keep going and going and going and going. Because it has so much options. And I hope they're going to port it to whatever thingamajig they're going to have next. Because they're going to have a next... Because that's Nintendo makes machines with games on it, but they make the machines. So it is a really weird... niche of the world, but I think what a film should do is make sure that you entertain people and make sure that they don't feel that they wasted their hour and a half that they're looking at you by not boring you out of your brains. What a game should do is do the same by not frustrating you to stop and playing, and that is a difference. That is a great big difference. Yeah, another thing that a game very much by nature of its thing does better than any movie is give you a mystery that you can actually solve. Because you can follow, in a movie you can follow Poirot along his journey trying to clear up a murder. But in a game you can actually clear up the murder yourself. And there may be actually different solutions and different ways to get there. It's different. It is just so different. And that's why watching more than one person play a game like Journey, because Journey is one journey, but when you replay it, and the point is that you actually replay it multiple times, every time you do the journey, it is not quite the same journey. It is different by the nature of it. And so watching more than one person play the game or play a Zelda game, I mean 50 hours is a lot, but still, or Superliminal or any of or the Stanley Parable. It's very specific, but the Stanley Parable has like 16 different endings, so you have 16 different ways you can end the game.
Yeah, I mean it's Stanley, so it's like multiverse.
It's Stanley. I don't think it's... But yeah, yes. It's not multiverse. No, it's multi-ending. It's different.
Multi-ending, so it's a parallel timelines.
It is Stanley Ultra Deluxe. It's abstract. You have to play it. It's really fun. And it doesn't... I don't think that it doesn't need a drag and break solution at the end of it, because it's not that kind of thing. It branches out, whereas it doesn't need to come back together to something else. It doesn't need to do that. Even though it had a sequel, the Deluxe is the sequel. Yeah, they make an interest. I don't think you can make something like the Stanley Parable into a movie, because the point of Stanley Parable is that you have the narrator who introduces you to Stanley, who is you, and then he says, "Oh, Stanley says this and that," and then you go do that, because that's the thing that games do very much. They instruct you at first because they want to show you how to play the game. The Zelda game does that as well, or the new Zelda games. Is they put Link in the new world, and then they give him a couple of things he must go through, so he gets the absolute minimum of skill sets to navigate the world. Then they let Link out into the world, and he can do his open world stuff. Stanley, who is not about skill at all, it's about it's about manipulation, I suppose. The narrator says Stanley does something, and then the player is supposed to do that. But there's quite quickly, because the narrator talks a lot, you come to a set of 2 doors, and then the narrator says Stanley went through the left door to the conference room. And after you've done that a couple of times and you always end up back at the start at some point. After a while, you say, no, I'm going to take the right door. And then you go to the right door, and then the narrator goes, and Stanley went to the right door. He knew that it was not the right door to go to, because it doesn't lead to the conference room. But he wanted to go to the personnel lounge instead. So then it takes you to the personnel lounge, lets you look around, and then you have to go.
Realize it's not the right door.
And it is a caricature of all other games that do the same thing, because all games do that. They want you to follow a certain path, and even in an open world one, they want you to do, because storytelling, they want you to follow a certain path at some point, because otherwise it gets too stacked for anybody, because you have to do everything non-linear. You're driving the poor writers up the wall, to the point that I was just like yesterday watching a YouTuber play Breath of the Wild, the first Zelda game, according to the book given by the accompanying book by Nintendo. Has an accompanying book. If you don't know what to do, follow the book, and you simply follow the instructions. Go up this ledge. Go find. Go talk to the person there. Go accept whatever they give you. Go do this. Go do that. He did that for the entire game. And I think he condensed something like 25 hours into an hour and a half, so we could watch it. Thank you. To see if that would work. He did it as a meme, but it turned out to be quite useful, because it actually everything worked. Nintendo's book is good, so yay! But that's how Nintendo intended you to play, but you could have played it any other way. But it is possible to, because now the games are so sophisticated that you don't run into a problem where you get stuck, and even if you do, you can now go on the internet and go to any Wikipedia, and it will say, you got stuck behind the rose bushes because you wanted the rose of infidelity, and you went around left ways, and you should have run around right ways, and you got stuck. Now you do this, that, and that, and you get unstuck. Or when the path is not clear. But the Zelda game, the paths are not unclear anymore. They will even if the path as they intended is not clear, there will be 4 other paths to get there as well, whatever it was. So, because they're smart enough to realize that people are certain levels of smart, not always all the same height of level of smart, and you will do the dumb thing sometimes. And so there's for Link, there's a whole bunch of trial locations you go to, and whenever you do such a trial, you get a point, and you can exchange those, which is good. But on the whole, you can cheese quite a bit. You can jump over stuff where you shouldn't be jumping over stuff. You should be doing it, but if you jump over, so if it's open world, it's difficult to make the things progressively harder, because open world. But you get open world for it, and the Nintendo, yeah. I mean, there's a reason why everybody talks nothing but Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. They are right. This is it. If you're gonna play, and don't even bother playing Breath of the Wild anymore. I mean, yes, the only difference is the basic story, but you can get that from any of the cutscene compilations. Play Tears of the Kingdom, and then go look at some other people, lore, and maybe if you want to play Breath of the Wild. But you're going to be disappointed with Breath of the Wild once you've played Tears of the Kingdom, because functionality is less. So, yeah. And, that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.